Okay, cool. Move this. That. Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome to my book club. Vampires Are My Special Interest Book Club is the book club title. In case you were wondering, it's a vampire book club. Do I need to keep saying more? I don't know. We read vampire anthologies here. I recently remembered that I know that word and that it describes the books that we read. I've been saying short story collections, but anthologies is a smarter word. We have read 2 so far. We just a couple weeks ago, we finished this last one. Sisters of the Night, edited by Barbara Hambly and Martin H. Greenberg. Came out in like 94 or 95. And we're gonna rank it tonight, the stories inside, which I always get tripped up because the description will be like, there's 15 stories in here, but then you actually look and it's like a 2-page introduction and then 14 stories. They always include the introduction. Yeah, there is 14 in here, and it's probably not going to take the entire stream, which I like to do about 2 hours-ish. So we're probably going to start reading the next book, too, which, by the way, is Vampires. Very succinct. A collection of original stories edited by Jane Yolen and, again, Martin H. Greenberg. This one's from 1991, I believe, and it has even fewer stories, which I did not count, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13, unless I counted that wrong, and there's 14, so it's about the same size, actually. Yeah. This one is more of an adult. I've tucked into this one slightly. I've gotten a couple stories in, and this one seems more like it was, if this was, probably went into the young adult section, so it's not going to be as creepy or gory, or there's a lot. I don't think this one's particularly sexy, but I don't think this one's going to be nearly as sexy. I'm rambling. Am I rambling? I don't know. I just want people to know what's going to happen. So, yeah. Let's rank this, and then we'll probably end up reading a little bit of this. First off, we start with Empty by M. John Harrison, which was a man tasked with fighting out... Oh, you know what? I completely forgot to get the ranking thingy set up. Hold on. Where did I save that? Because... yeah, there we are. Open with paint, because it's fucking easy. And all I have to do is add words. I don't have to think about any of the other Photoshop shit. Okay, but you need to be able to see that. One of these has the option, I swear to God. There we go. This doesn't need to be nearly as big. This time, I think the last one, I didn't make it. I think I had to go to E and F, but I don't think it needs that, honestly. Anyway, yeah. So, hold on. Let me make it a little bigger. Because, boy. You guys need to be able to at least see what I'm doing. Okay. Hi. Empty by M. John Harrison. The man is tasked with finding out what happened to a teenage girl when she went missing for 2 days. He's usually paid to go find missing people, but for some reason he was asked to find this girl. And what did I think? some quotes that I liked from it were, "To tell the truth, I throw away anything that bores me. I once began a CV. My name is Jacob Wishart, and I don't own much, let alone live alone, travel light, never sign your own name. They didn't give me the post." And is there anything else from this? Yes. "Every pebble ever washed down that river to the sea is embedded somewhere in these moors. I understood that when I was up there, even when I was in black mud to my knees. I could feel the currents and the tides." She thought for a moment. She said, "Everything is so old." Then she said, "The moors are the sea." That's another part. I highlighted the things that I liked, but I also didn't mark them, so I have to go through the pages. I think like last one I missed a couple, unfortunately. This one's a lot shorter though. In the driving mirror, I could see last year's dead leaves panicking about in my wake. I really like that sentence. Last year's dead leaves panicking about in my wake while driving. And their eyes were closed, and I thought they were dead. Perhaps they were, but they were still talking to each other. It was interesting, unique vampires. The vampire was like seemingly some woman just kind of wandering around. For him, he saw her at a cemetery. For her, she just found her in the moors somewhere. And then they fall into these like dream worlds where the winter isn't winter. There's no snow, even though there's like the next day there's like 2 inches of snow outside. They said like the valley fills with light, like something being poured into a cup. It's very vivid and interesting. And the unique vampires, because the parents that it looks like they're dead, but they're still talking, and they're just like 2 people in a bathtub piled on top of each other, struggling to stand and just being like trying to show this man who appeared in their home, their house, being like, I don't know, like, we have to get up, we have to go, we have to an Italian boiler, very reliable, gas but electrically controlled. I just thought it was so interesting. It was such an interesting take on a vampire and their victims. She drained her parents, and then what was left with this like horrifying thing that I haven't seen a vampire do. I like to talk in circles. Sorry if that's annoying. If that is annoying, then this isn't the stream for you. I feel like this story, I do feel like this story is trying to tell me something I'm too dumb to understand. And because of like his whole like his thing about getting older and needing to change. I don't know. Like I said, I feel like it's trying to tell me something that I just don't quite get. I'm not quite there at analyzing it. Maybe if I was older or a man or something, I would get it more, but I don't really. I'm not really sure what it's trying to tell me besides getting older sucks, maybe? And I wish the MC had gotten eaten so we got to see what that was like. Yeah. Because, like, we talk to the girl who does then become the vampire. Like, we see this figure who might be a vampire. We see this girl who's clearly interacted with that figure, and then we see her victims, her parents, but we don't see the girl ever again. And we have a glimpse of it, of the world the vampire hallucinations was trying to create. And I just wish that like we'd actually gotten to see it. I think that would have been so much more interesting than him just running away in fear, you know. But that's me. I'm gonna say the story isn't quite for me because of that, but I'm not sure again if like it's trying to tell me something I don't quite get. Am I the problem, or is the story the problem? I'm not really sure. So I don't want to give it too high of a rating. I don't want to give it too low of one. I think here I said like a B plus. Oh God. Which I can do because I make up the rules. Control A. Let's opaque. God, that font is tiny. There you go. Gonna put it in B plus. Good for us. Okay, next one. The Blood Beast by Diana L. Paxson. I'm not really sure if they're Swedish or not, but I put Swedish ? Clan has trouble with their animals and crops. They suspect a local unliked family of cursing them. What quotes do I like? I didn't really quote this because but in the flickering light she could see a look like hunger on the faces of many of the others that made her feel a little ill. In her own husband's eyes, thank the gods, there was only irritation. Nonetheless, he was the one who finally motioned to Rolf to come away and give the order to set the brushwood alight. That's right, yeah. A lot of my thoughts when I was rereading it, trying to come up with where I would, like, things I wanted to say about this. I'm not sure if it hit me the first time I was reading it, but on rereading it, I liked the little sprinkles of, like, what the clan is doing to this couple. Is it okay? Like, it's very like he said, she said, in this sense that the couples are like they're elderly and they struggle to take care of their animals and thus to like take them to the fields to feed them and to, you know, to like do the daily tasks of the, I don't know, old-timey world to like survive. Food, shelter, clothing, things like that. They're struggling. And the clan's leader, the husband of the main character, is like, well, if you weren't so mean to people, they would help you. And we have free spaces where everybody can take their animals to feed, so just take your animals out to the free spaces. On the other hand, which is like, yeah, that makes sense, you know, like, well, okay, maybe they are like really cruel, but we don't actually have anyone's word that they suck except the heroes of the story. And the heroes of the story are the one who set their fucking house on fire and burned them alive. Like, they suspect they expect them of being using troll magic or whatever, and setting out changing form magically, and then running out and like eating other people's milk or something. And someone spotted this troll magical animal wandering around, and they threw stuff at it, which was supposed to injure it. Meaning when they went back to this family to see if they were the ones who did the magic creature, if you're limping, that means that you were the animal because we injured your leg. I forget what I was going with this. I lost my point. Right, and then because they're like, well, you're limping, and that's our proof that you're doing something wrong, and we need to deal with this and with you. So I just realized I have this popped up. So you need to come out here and talk to us. You can't just stay in your home. And they refuse to leave their home, so they just set the place on fire. They're like, well, I guess if you burn alive, it's your fault because you could have just left. And it's just like this like insane kind of like, well, you wouldn't be starving to death if you just did what we wanted, and if you were less like the way we don't want you to be. But that means that the clan leader is allowing these people to starve to death. You know? It's like, yeah, okay, I guess, but also they're starving and they're elderly and they have like arthritis and like it's cold and that makes them limp, and you're like setting their house on fire because you think they're evil, and it just so happens that they are evil. But it feels very like, well, if you, like he said, she said, like I said, like at some point somebody needs to stop, but instead the ball just keeps rolling down the hill and getting worse. And again, when I read it the first once, I think I read it like 2 times. I'm not sure if I necessarily picked up on it, but as I was reading through it this time, it really bothered me. It really upset me. I was like, I can't believe, like, the main character's husband is the clan leader, and she's just like lusting after him the whole time, remarking on how hot he is and how much she loves him and how badly she wants him to love her back, and it to be a marriage of love and not of like money and like power, because, you know, once he married her, that's helped him get to the position that he is. And meanwhile, he's like burning a family alive. But he's not painted as a bad guy. It's just like weird. But there are sprinkles of it here and there, like the sentence, only Gamil and Ula got nothing, for there was still a dispute about a boundary between them and Calv. As in, the what's his fucking name? Calv, the clan guy, was giving out seed corn from his store sheds to the men, the rest of the folk in their clan, because food stocks were low, but they didn't give it to the elderly couple because they were still fighting about a boundary. And it's like, you intentionally, as the clan leader, didn't give food to the elderly because they were like letting their cows eat your grass or something. Like, I get it, but at the same time, are you kidding me? Like, if you just fed them, this probably wouldn't have happened. Anyway, I did praise that. I want to praise that. I do want to be like, at least the author seems to understand what they're writing, I think. I'm not sure how intentional that was, but I did like it. I wasn't just like sitting there like pissed off, like, why are you acting like this is good? Anyway, yeah, appreciate the small ambiguity of whether or not what the clan does is right. That said, she had called Ula sister, and it was true. The temptation to release the darkness she had discovered within herself in order to fight it tore at her soul. Only the pain in her arm reminded her that she was Calv's wife and Oslog's mother, and she would die rather than win by becoming the thing she feared. My real gripe about this story, I mean, that wasn't really, all the stuff I've been saying wasn't necessarily a gripe. It was more like a thing that I noticed, and I think the author did intentionally, in which case I actually really like. A gripe I have is that Freda, the main character, has this like small character arc where she starts to identify more and more with Ula, the troll magic beast person who's actually the vampire in the story. Like that paragraph I just read said, she feels closer and closer to her, trying to understand her, and she starts to seemingly believe that she is the darkness too, like there's darkness inside of her too. And I don't think that is written well enough for it to actually hit. Freda is too pure and good. Her fears of becoming like Ula / a monster just doesn't make sense. Like, the darkness she has is she has nightmares. She has nightmares that are actually magically related that help her figure out where Ula's beast form is hiding at night. No, during the day, because it's a night creature. She has dreams, and eventually they lead her to where Ula's a bed. It's not bed, but like a place where she sleeps is. And like she just doesn't she's just a loving mom. a loving wife. Her biggest, like, most important things in her life is whether or not her husband lifts her back. Her darkness is just having nightmares. The nightmares don't even cause her to do anything. She does ultimately go out there and kill the Ula creature thing and save the day, but at no point does she, like, she's not angry. She's not impatient. She's not lusty. Even then, like, I'm calling out, like, sins of Christianity, Christian Judaic religion, you know what I'm saying? You know, and this is a completely different time period. Like, where in here is she actually, like, falling into the darkness? She isn't, and it just doesn't quite hit for me. So, I want to give it an S because I really like the world created here. I really like the monster, the creepy. It's just cool. It's just cool and interesting, and I love historical fantasy. I love, like, imagining shit in the past and being like, well, what if there was a vampire? It's just fun, whatever. But because of the character arc thingy, I'm gonna have to drop it slightly, make it like not quite an S, make it an A. Pretty good. It makes more sense than empty. The blood beast. Okay, make that smaller. Doop. Oh, not bad. It's over here. Madeline. Madeline by Barbara Hambly, the editor. A vampire lady is forced through the survivor of her victim to hear the thoughts of the people she kills. I love this story. I love it so much. It's a wonderful concept. I love how selfish and cruel Madeline is and how this doesn't make her change. And the Madeline character is lushly detailed. The characters are great. I just really like it. Yeah. Let's see. Madeline would see them through the lace curtains of her flat when the lights were up in the darkness, talking as they cooked supper, hands waving with the earnestness of lovers, brandishing sausages at one another on the end of forks, or else would listen to them make love from where she stood on the flagway, or in the next street, or 3 blocks away, seeking out the sound through all the night sounds of the city, all the lovers, all the children playing on the night pavements, all the parents arguing over money or dreams. She must have the most dreadful time finding gloves, thought the vampire, with detached amusement. If her feet are anything like in proportion, she probably hunts all over the city for shoes. Madeline's own hands and feet were small, exquisite and high-buttoned shoes handmade for her by an old man on the fringes of the financial district. I really shouldn't have highlighted it in purple. It's a lot harder to read. I'm going to have to start doing, like, pink. Madeline was careful not to get blood on the shimmering apricot-colored silk, which she then held up to herself before the seamstress's long mirror. It was a little too big, but she took it anyway, liking the fabric. It would not take much, she told herself, to alter it to her own more fragile body. That she had nearly 30 such dresses, taken in the confidence of alteration she had no concept of how to perform, did not cross her mind. All those were out of style by this time anyway. God. I have a soft spot in my heart for a selfish bitch. A mean, selfish bitch who gets what she deserves or just exists. Like, I was thinking of Chucky recently. I've been my friends know that I'm obsessed with Jennifer Tilly / Tiffany Valentine, Chucky, the Bride of Chucky. Yeah, that, not related to anything at all about what we're talking about here, but I do really like Madeline, the character in the story. And I like that it's all like a point of view of one person. There's like maybe 4 characters, but the other 3 characters get such little time that like it's remarkably not boring. Like, yeah, whatever. I'm not very good at like praising things. It's a lot easier for me to like pick apart the things. I've had a lot more practice just being like, I don't like this, but I'm not sure why. I'm going to think about it. It's a lot harder for me to be like, I really like this, and I don't know how to convey it. But Madeline is definitely up there. It is one of the better stories. Oops. Because I want to give this an S, honestly. It was really good. Oh, you spelled that wrong. Madelene. Madeline. Why am I doing that? I don't know. Okay. Mama by Steve and Melanie Tem, which is a name I recognize. I think Melanie Tem is a short story writer, because I haven't looked at their like Goodreads or anything, but I keep seeing that name when I look up like descriptions of just not just this book and the last book, but looking for more stories to read in general. Elizabeth's mother died 6 months ago, yet she's alive and cooking breakfast now, currently. God, I really like this story. Elizabeth's mother was dead, which was a shame because right now Elizabeth wanted to kill her herself. You're grounded, Mama yelled. You're dead, Elizabeth yelled back, and the power of saying that took her breath away. And it was Dad who was looking pale, sick, and depressed, like he wanted to die, like Mama had taken everything away from him, like Mama had gotten her way again, and he had taken Mama's place. But Elizabeth hadn't gotten Mama back either, because of the trick. And Mama had changed, and nothing would ever be right again. If she was their real mother, which she shouldn't be, because their mother was dead. God, this is such a good story. It's so interesting. Like, it was effectively creepy. Powerless, helpless girl with 0 answers and nowhere to turn to for help. Yeah, like, she's this young girl. She's like 14. I'm not sure when this is supposed to be taking place. I assume present day for the book, so like 1995. She knows that her family has done something weird. They lied about her mother being dead or something for 6 months because her mother is now in their kitchen again cooking them breakfast. She's not dead, but we told everybody that she's dead. So what am I supposed to do about this? You know, she like tries to tell her friend, and her friend's like, why are you doing this joke? Okay, I have a date to go to and you're being weird. Just stop. And she slaps her friend so hard her friend stops talking to her, which is fair. If my friend fucking slapped me, I'd probably stop talking to them too. But it does leave like this 14-year-old girl with like nowhere to go. She's so isolated. How does she tell people her mother is alive when she died and there was a funeral 6 months ago? And she's 14, so who's going to believe her, you know? And like, I love stories that take being a child into account in their story about children, which is hard to do, especially as an adult. You know, we can come up with all kinds of ways to possibly escape the situation. But when you're like 14, 15, nobody has ever been through this before. It's not like you can, and it's the 90s, so like, what are you supposed to do? Go to the library and be like, my mom isn't dead anymore. What do I do about it? You know? And then it's a perfect situation because her mom is incredibly controlling when she was alive. Like, even her friend remarks that her mom was kind of a bitch. So, like, she's already kind of grown up in this mindset of an abusive family, you know, where you keep, like, these types of families, you don't talk about what's happening, because if you talk about it, you could make it stop. So the family just kind of tricks you into never talking about it, so it continues on forever. You could say learned helplessness, but I want to fight anybody who uses that phrase, even though it's an official one, but used by, like, psychiatrists and stuff. But yeah, like, kind of a learned helplessness, but also, like, just a general helplessness, because, again, she is a child, and that's the most important part of the story. But yeah, I really like it. However, my one gripe is I don't really get the ending. What does she mean by she'll be stronger than Mama? What is it? I'm ready, she says, smiling, thinking maybe that at last her Mama would be pleased. Pleased that now she was so much like her. But the joke would be on Mama. Mama with her dirty little grown-up secret. Because Elizabeth would be even better than Mama. Even stronger. She just lets her family, her weird zombie vampire family that eats mice and flies, hug the life out of her is kind of what's going on, or seemingly going on. What I don't, like, part I do not get is Elizabeth going, she's going to be even better than her, even stronger. It just seems like kind of out of character for me. Not Elizabeth wanting to be better than her mother, but viewing giving in and letting the monster take her as that. It just feels wrong and weird and like set up to be like a Wham line instead of like a, but it doesn't feel like a Wham line. It feels like a, what? What do you mean? Child, what do you mean becoming a monster? You gonna be I kind of get it. I don't really. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not really sure if that's a me thing. But it did. The last like two lines, the last like two sentences just went like, huh? And really brought down the rest of the story for me. I wish they just like deleted them. Just let her fall into her monster family's arms and become a monster herself and not be like, I'm going to be better than my mother. Because I think being better than her is beating her to death again with a baseball bat and then breaking a window and running away. Not becoming like her mother. I don't get that. Yeah. So I was going to give this, I want to give it an S, but it's more like an S-. I'm sorry, I don't get the last sentence, and it really threw me off and fucked it up for me. Wow, okay. Homophobic. There we go. Okay. No, you gotta let me move you. Oh, fuck. Well, you know what? It's in there. It's fine. Survival Skills by Deborah Wheeler. A vampire mother of vamp children must sign them up for night school. A lighthearted look at vampires living a modern life. Let's see. 300 years ago, a child wandering alone and apparently helpless was nothing more than an easy victim or an unpleasantness to be ignored. But today, they could not be turned loose until they looked adult. Who knew how many vampire parents had been driven insane in this century, when the terrible twos might last for several decades? Once, when they had been particularly disobedient, she'd taken them to a Dracula movie. They emerged from the theater whimpering from the graphic depiction of stakes driven through the heart, crosses branded on naked skin, coffins splintered or set ablaze, flesh crumbling into dust at the touch of dawn. You be good, she'd told them, or the Van Helsing will get you. She sipped shallowly so as not to render them seriously anemic and left them with a post-hypnotic suggestion to contribute generously to the Wildlife Fund's Save the Bats campaign. But Mom, Kyra looked thoughtful. What if someone bites me first? She held out her arm, unmarked. But Valeria sensed the pressure residues from an arc of human teeth. Carlos just said, somewhat smugly. Human child biting the vampire child. Because his tooth is loose. It's so funny. It's just a set of instructions, she said, shrugging, compared to the passport regulations for Romanian nationals resident in post-revolutionary France, or the laws of 16th century Nepal's. These rules were pitifully simple. I think you're wrong about humans being so suspicious. Kyra ran one finger along the edge of the computer keyboard. When we started school, I was scared of making a mistake and having someone find out, but I had it all backward. Once they get to know you, you can do any kind of wacky thing and they won't care. Chances are they won't even notice. Interesting look at humanity. Pay attention to the red flags, though. Just because they're weird, make sure they're not dangerous. A lovely little story about finding community and belonging. Personally, I love the idea that the better humans know you, the weirder you can be and still find acceptance, at least in Hollywood, California. It was really sweet. I want to give a shout out to this Carlos character. This little kid that just goes around biting vampire children and not realizing it. Because one of his teeth was loose. And then he promises later to stop biting her to his mom. It's so cute. God. Yep. S. Put that up in S. It was really adorable. Hi. Survival skills. I don't know how much fun you're gonna have on this stream, Bessie, if you hang around, because I don't know how many of these you listen to. One, two, three, four, five. We're almost halfway. No, maybe like a fifth. A third. Tumbling down the nighttime with Dean Wesley Smith. An old man in a nursing home wants to die of old age. Answers the question, what if a vampire fell in love with you? The buzzing sound was a part of nursing home routine that he heard every day, every hour. A sound that annoyed him, grated at his nerves, and made him angry. He never understood why, since he was here to die, he couldn't do it without the metallic sound of others doing the same thing. I thought that was very relatable. If I had to listen to a metallic buzzing sound constantly in the nursing home as I'm slowly dying of old age, I would stab my eyeballs out. Which doesn't make sense, because it's a sound. But I like to hear other things. Oh gosh. Yeah, that was about all I don't know why. This one part I really liked. I don't know why I didn't highlight it the first time. There we go. He's like, prove that you're Rebecca. Tell me something about her that only I would know. He smiled at her, figuring he had her. But she smiled back, let go of his arm, and stood. In a flash, she had unzipped her levies and pulled them down enough to expose white lace panties. Facing the lamp, she pulled the panties down to the top of her black pubic hair, and there was a birthmark. Rebecca's birthmark. He glanced up into her serious eyes and then back at the apple-shaped birthmark, an apple with what looked to be a bite taken out of it, a very distinctive, one-of-a-kind birthmark. You always used to call it the apple of your eye because you liked to look at it so much. She laughed. Again, a sincere, deep laugh. In fact, the last few years you called it an appetizer because it always came right before the main course. I know this man is waiting to die of old age. I don't know why I didn't include. And then his ex-girlfriend showed up, and she's a vampire, and she's willing to kill him so he doesn't have to keep living here forever because she can't actually like turn him. I thought it was a really bittersweet, lovely little story. I've been thinking about the apple of my eye birthmark since I read it. I think that's a really sweet, like, way of proving how deeply they loved each other. You know, this, like, what's one little symbol, this one little thing, this thing that he loved about her so much that, like, 40 years later, she shows it to him, and he's like, oh, you are who you say you are. You are Rebecca. Even though it's been so long and he hasn't seen her, and she still looks like she did, so she could be, like, a daughter or something, a granddaughter maybe even. When I do reread it, I do kind of wish. I mean, it's not a particularly large story, right? So being like, I wish it was shorter feels kind of mean, but a good chunk of it is him waiting for the nurses to come at like 1 a.m, like their typical routine, but they don't, and nobody knows why, and all the residents are buzzing their buzzers calling for the nurses, wondering what's going on, but the nurses are dealing with an accident that Rebecca caused outside, so they'd be distracted so she can come in to help, to talk to the main character. So I'm not really sure what the point of that is, that setup, because it comes across as something's gone wrong, something creepy, unsettling. You know, this is a story about vampires, and now the nurses are gone, you know? But instead it's just like, oh, she's gone now. Like, they're gone so that she can come in. And it's just too long of a gap between these instances that it's like, why is this here? What's the point of it except to stretch the story out? Because this isn't this isn't a creepy story. It's a bittersweet, lovely one about time passing and not being able to be with the person that you love, but the person tells you that they've loved you this whole time as well. And they've even been watching you from the distance, and they want to help you in the last years of your life. But the beginning is like just a different tone. It's not even, you know, like, I don't really get it. Except possibly to just be like, look how much it sucks to be in a nursing home, which they make very clear at the very beginning, because it starts with the nurses. Was it between 1 and 1:15, the nurse, an over-busted, over-thighed woman with bottle-thick glasses, would rudely flip on the overhead light, pull back his covers, and check to see if the sheets were wet. They usually were, a source of continued embarrassment, more so with the presence of the almost always young, almost always pretty aide. The routine went on. Like, it immediately sounds like shit to live there. So I don't, you know, like, nah. I don't know what I would change, but nah. So I want to give this like another like an A. Yeah. Like with Mama, I would change like 2 sentences. Here, I'm not sure what, but I don't think it's quite S-, you know? Tumbling down the nighttime. Let's just do tumbling down the nighttime. Do. Oh. These are all pretty highly rated so far. There's only one, I think, that truly irritated me. We'll get to it. La Dame, Le Dame, I don't know, by Tanith Lee. A man, an ex-soldier, a veteran, buys a ship and sails out to an island that never arrives. The ship devours him. A man on a ship could be a very boring story, yet I was hooked. Effective haunting creepiness. I want to reread this one the next time I attempt to write a scary story with very few characters. There's like people kind of around, but he's the main one for most of it. It was the ground he had done with, full of graves and mud. What? Why did I highlight that? Because that's kind of what. The thing is, he is tired of the ground. It was full of graves and mud. He wants to sail out to the sea and live on an island. He let down her sail, and it spread like a swan's wing. It was, after all, discolored, of course, yet from a distance it would look very white, like a woman's arm that had freckles when you saw it close. When he went to the cabin, leaving the ship on her course, with the rope from the tiller tied to his waist, he knew that he would sleep as he had not slept on the beds of the earth. The sea, too, was full of the dead, but they were a long way down. He kept his hat over the wound shyly and said to Jilou, "Where are you bound? The islands? Do you think you'll get there?" "This lady will take me there," said Jilou. "Oh, she'll take you somewhere." Then the old soldier showed him the compass, and the needle had gone mad, reared up and poked down, right down, as if indicating hell. The man was a man who had died from a cannon shot 2 years before, was covering the wound shyly, which was interesting. He found that he lay with his head on her lap, and she was lovely now, prettier than any woman he had ever known. Her hair was honey, and her dress like a rose. Her white skin flushed with health, and in her cheeks and lips 3 flames. Her eyes were dark now, very fine. They shone on him. She leaned down and covered his mouth with hers. Such bliss. He woke. But I don't want the land. He remembered what the land had given him. Old hurts, drearer pains, comrades dead, wars lost, youth gone. Not the land, she said, but she smiled. Yeah, I really like the emphasis of this soldier just being tired of the earth and wanting to be on the sea because there's less bodies, and if they are, they're very far down. I love that. It's really interesting and cool. And it's really sad that he ends up on a ship that eats people. But I love the the ghosts we see, like the man that he knew before from one of his old comrades, or the hanging man he looks and then they're gone, or the people laughing at him being like, ha ha ha, he's going to go the way we did. Yeah, he is. Ha ha ha. It's so good. And I really, I'm going to reread this one day to figure out how to write a creepy story, because it's really creepy and cool, and I liked it a lot. And that's all I got to say, I think. Yeah. The vibes. Immaculate. God, I should have made a bigger thing. Which one is this? Le Dame. Doop. Okay. Sometimes Salvation by Pat Cadigan. A homeless alcoholic notices a monster within the local scene. Do not, please, get me wrong. I am not Saint Francis of Assisi, of the street children. My heart is not gold, and I do not want to do anything to improve society or the world. What I am and what I want to do are all very simple. I am a drunk, and I want to be drunk as much as possible, as long as possible. You do what your heart tells you to do while you still have one. And I said, put that on a pillow. I might crochet that on a, or embroider that on a pillow or something. You do what your heart tells you to do while you still have one. Handing out like Jesus, smiling like a pimp. Yeah, that's right, I thought. What we needed around these parts was a pimp pretending to be Jesus. That would make everything perfect. Since most of the kids never got a smile that didn't come from a pimp anyway, she must have looked like just some nice lady with plenty of food to give away. Oh, I croaked. You bring me some vodka? Better, she says, and starts to go on. Oh, don't say that, I interrupt, feeling her words taking shape in my own throat. That's so corny. Dark wine. I love the women don't rape moment. Oh yeah, I really do. When she, oh gosh, why didn't I mark it so I could look at it? Hold on. For thousands of years, women have done what they've had to do to stay alive. Now we'll do what we want to do and flourish. We've been saved. Where does she get this stuff? And finally, I understand who's really doing the talking here. She turned you out real good. Better job than anyone else has done on you, I say, letting her see me look from her to the beast who did the deed. Probably nobody else could do anything to make you say it's right to rape somebody, but she got you. I guess blood's the thickest stuff you can get, huh? Yeah, that's right. Women don't rape each other, she said, starting to get angry at me. Rapists rape anybody they want to rape. Did you want it when she came at you with those freaking teeth and those beast eyes? I didn't understand then, she said, but I see her wavering. Yeah, that's right, I say. I guess you didn't see how it was for your own good, huh? How you was really gonna like it when you got going, and even though it hurt like a bastard at first. Am I right about that? Was it painful? Oh, even though it hurt like anything, you'd be happy afterward that you went through with it. You'd want it again and again, and you'd want to do it as much as you could. What the heck? Let's turn pro, right? Isn't that right? And she's just talking about, like, the pimp lady is the vampire turning other people into vampires and just smiling like a Jesus, talking like a pimp, like a pink, I think I said. Yeah, I really like that. Like, rapists rape anybody they want to rape. It was a really interesting way to put it. Like, we think so much about, like, seduction and sexiness, but we don't talk about how what am I even saying? Yes, we do. Whatever. It was good. It was effective. I really like the main character, who's a sassy alcoholic who just wants to be a homeless, sassy alcoholic. Leave me alone. This is the life that I want. We don't get to decide who gets saved. A likable, somewhat scummy main character. I really liked it. Yeah. What else do I have to say? Oh, I really liked how she when she meets these kids for the first time, she always offers them a little sip of her alcohol, a little drink. She invites them to drink. And that is the emphasis of she invited me to drink, is when a vampire feeds on her while she's, like, basically passed out. And I thought that was a really interesting way to do that. She says, I haven't been invited. So then the little one says, well, I was once. And like that, I understand, and I pass out. It's so interesting. I wonder if the girl, the main character in the story afterwards is like, maybe I shouldn't invite random teenagers to a drink with me anymore. Yeah, no, I also, like, I think it's, I really like the main character, like I said, but the whole we don't get to decide who gets saved thing is just very interesting, because, you know, you get a lot of stories that are like, my fucking, like, one from the other book was like, my druggy brother's doing drugs and being druggy, and God, druggies are so annoying with all their drugs and their drugginess, and oh my God, I hate them. But what about from the other side of like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic and I'm unapologetic about it. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And I don't even want you in my life. Interesting character. My brain is just like toying with that. It's like, ooh, spinny, shiny thing. Interesting. Maybe I should go look for these kinds of stories so I can keep playing with the thoughts in my brain. Maybe I can write one. Ooh. Okay, whatever. Sometimes Salvation, I want to give an S. I don't think there's anything I would change about it. It's a pretty solid story with good characters. I really like this one. This book. Oh gosh, I did make this too small. Of course I did. Why did I think it wasn't too small? This didn't help me at all. Okay. Survival skill. No, sometimes Salvation. Okay. In the Blood by Michael Kurland. The son of a vampire learns what he is and grows up. I really like the reveal about the vampires. It's so fun. It's and I remember Mother creeping into my room late at night to tuck the covers up around me and lovingly suck the blood from my neck. Lisbeth called me a cruel, heartless boy and reported the conversation to Mother. Mother scolded me, but I could see that she was more amused than annoyed. She wanted to know what I thought ravish meant, and I told her that it meant something like kiss, but I wasn't sure just what. It happened in all the books Lisbeth read, thick Gothic novels full of ghosts and murderers and gloomy castles and other wonderful things. A boy after my own heart, yeah. She gave no reason, and it didn't occur to me that she might need one. The ways of adults are mysterious, and the ways of Mother were mysterious even to other adults. We stayed in a long, narrow, 3-story house on one of the windy streets with a carriage house in back, and we had 9 servants, the bare minimum, Mother said, for civilized living. Jesus Christ. 9 servants. I was just more amused by that than anything. No one among our growing circle of acquaintances in Paris thought it unusual that the Baroness Idelia von Hochbergen, which is his mom now, they changed names, would seldom make appointments during the day. In the second year of the second reign of Louis VIII, the king's subjects worked hard at not thinking of anything as being unusual. I love that. I love deciding where to live as a weird creature and get away with it. So moving over here where Louis VIII is doing insane shit ends up working for them. It's just really interesting. Yeah. What else did I say? His mother is such an interesting character that I would love to meet her and then immediately be murdered. Okay, maybe I wouldn't just love to meet her. Maybe I would love to woo her. I don't know why I didn't just write that in my little note. Mute. Even bad men love their mamas trope. Yeah. He spends 80% of the story being afraid of becoming a vampire, and the rest is him being alone, falls flat. Wish he had an opposite personality sibling, or we get Mama's point of view. Yeah, I love his mother. She is delightful. I wish I could meet her. I wish I could meet her. And I would love to be a servant in their household. Like, the way they just kind of run from place to place, city to city, just trying to survive, you know? Every couple years, you gotta move because you're a vampire, and people will figure out what you are and how many people you've killed if you hang around. I love that. I need to travel more. But I also like when people who are good at describing things write stories where people like travel from place to place, village to village, especially historically. I don't know if I could do that. It's like the lushness in my brain is just like buzzy. I love it. I love reading that kind of stuff. Medusa, you're in the way. Hi. Okay. Hi. Oof. That said, he does spend most of the story being like, oh God, I could become a vampire. I could become a monster. I'm so scared of asking my mother more questions about what she means that we are vampires. I'm so scared of the servant walking around at night wiping the blood off of his mouth. And I'm so scared of knowing more about the men my mother seduces who disappear the next week, you know? And like, oh God, what am I going to become? Who's my father? And all of this. And then he gets old enough. He becomes a real vampire. He starts feeding on people. And that lasts like 2 pages. 3. And then it's the end of the story. That's why I said, like, I wish he had like a twin who was really into being a vampire. So we got to see more of a vampire life. A contrast, maybe. These are just thoughts that I had. The problem, again, spends so much time being a vampire, and then he becomes one, and then, like, it's just like such a small chunk of it. And like, I want to know what it's like to be one or something. I'm not really sure what I'm not really sure how to the solution to this problem. Like, maybe it could have been told from the perspective of his mother or something. It's just not nearly as interesting. It could have been more interesting with a different point of view or a foil, you know, an identical twin or something. Because I want to know about the vampires. I don't want to know about the kid who's scared of vampires. I want to know about the vampires. And I am indeed talking in circles, like I said before. And I will continue to say, because that's what I do. Yeah. So, this isn't an S or even an A for me. This is more like a B. It is partially the story just isn't for me, but partially the more interesting characters are off screen. Like, why are you what are you trying to get at when you're telling this story? What story are you intending to tell me? Are you trying to just tell me, what if I wrote a story about a boy who was a vampire, but he was scared of vampires? Okay. Then can you, like, make him a vampire hunter? Or, I don't know, suicidal? Make him burn himself alive? Something? Because this is just like, yeah, okay. And then the story's over. So yeah. In the Blood, probably a B. I do want to join, like, a club where we discuss writing, our writing, each other's writing. One, just to be better at writing, but two, so it, like, I can figure out how to say, like, so it's easier to, like, be like, this is what I liked and this is what I didn't like, and this might be an idea of how to bridge that gap. I don't know. Go join your local library and go to their clubs and support your local library and the local library clubs, and wear a mask in public. That is my PSA. Next story is Victims by Kristine Kathryn Rusch. A man working for a politician is looking into a rival's history with a vampire escort. She had insisted on the time. A woman in my profession, she had said, her voice husky through the phone lines, looks best after dark. I don't think I highlighted much of this. Yeah. This story definitely falls into not for me category. I'm not great with names, so the beginning confused me for a while. Who is the main character working for / against? Like, it was like, her name had shown up twice before with this one guy and then this other guy. And then I used to work here, but now I work here maybe. And there's a woman. And what? But yeah, I'm not great with names, so that completely threw me. I'm not sure if that's just a me thing or not. Oddly hopeful of rape victims despite being a story about politicians. Also oddly hopeful about politics changing the world. Not for me, but well written enough, and I don't know how to rank it. Oh yeah, it was a leather miniskirt. She wore spike heels, fishnets, and a leather miniskirt that revealed each curve around her hips. I thought it was such a funny way of saying that, because it's like a leather miniskirt that revealed each curve around her hips. Is like, was she like wiggly? Did she like each curve around her hips? She like wiggle, 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 and then her legs. Ignore me. Hip is already a curve, so just say her curved hips, which revealed her which hugged her curves. I don't know. It's better ways of saying that. Yeah, like, I like, what's her name? The vampire. I like that the vampire was a rape victim. I like that the story wants to empower people like her and this world where vampires are have been out for 5 years, something like that. I like this, like, well, what do we do when these creatures we know exist are harmed by humans? Because it is a crime now to murder them. They are citizens. They are real, living, breathing citizens, sort of. It's a crime to rape them. What do we do about this? And she wants to move, because vampires have to live in the background of society, kind of puppet mastering the world. But what if they don't want to do that anymore? What if they want to be front and center? They want to have their own politicians and their own political gains and like movements and stuff. I just don't believe an assistant to a politician would fucking care this much about her being raped, or the fact that the politician he works for was one of the people who raped her. I don't fucking believe that anybody is this hopeful of changing, like, the politics of America or whatever is going to, like, make the world a better place. I don't believe a single fucking thing about these politicians. So this story is just not for me. But I don't find anything, like, inherently terrible about it. You know, like, there's just one funny line about hips. The characters are fine. They make sense. The dialogue makes sense. Nothing necessarily took me out besides my own biases, you know? So, I feel weird giving the story that I don't particularly like a higher ranking. Can I, like, put it down here? Sorry. Victims. Hold on. I have this emoji saved on my phone, so I don't have to look it up anymore, but it's not saved on here. What? There we go. Put it down here, and we'll make the tier. That's okay. I don't expect you to have a lot to say, not in a derogatory sense. Again, I'm just reading stories that you haven't really been around for, but I'm happy that you're here. Thank you. This is its own tier. This is my, bestie, I don't know. Oh, God. Continuing the habit of me calling everybody bestie. Why am I using paint? This is so annoying. Yeah, it wouldn't be annoying if you were using a different program. Hush. There we go. It's its own category. Shrug emojis, victims. That is a doodle. That's a doodle from the line. She wore spike heels, fishnets, and a leather mini skirt that revealed each curve around her hips. It's just, like, a really funny way of saying that to me. Like, yes, this leather mini skirt reveals all the curves in her hips. And then the curves are like, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Thanks for listening. It's going to take up space up there, though. It's important that there's space on my paint tier list. Anyway, continuing on. Oh, God, what was I even doing? Next story. Married and the Trail of Blood by George Alec Effinger. A nightclub owner's previous employee has been murdered. The suspected killer is another one of his former employees. He investigates. I'm glad you get it. If you get it, you get it. If you know, you know. There's a certain time of day that always makes me feel as if my blackened soul were just then under the special scrutiny of Allah in paradise. That for me is like 5:30 when I can't fucking sleep yet I'm still awake. I don't believe in God. I am not religious. But at 5:30, if I'm still awake despite trying very hard, I do feel as if my soul is on the little, like, the scale with the feather, and I am losing. Okay, baby, you gotta go on the floor. You gotta go on the floor because my leg is getting numb. Okay, thank you. You're interested in the death of the young dancer. It is of no importance. Maybe it's because I used to be a poor street kid myself, but the lives and deaths of the people of the Boudicca matter more to me. Married, it's Yasmin, and guess what? She actually waited for me to guess. I didn't bother. Oh, yeah, a little sprinkle of transphobia. Just to be clear, don't forget, we can't rank this too high because there's just a little sprinkle of transphobia, and we don't like that here. She's a gorgeous sex change, and she was well aware that I've never had much success with real women. Fuck off. Yeah, you're not gonna have success with me, at least. I'm gonna punch you. I was positively... Okay, sorry. Typo. I was positive now that I wasn't dealing with her real personality. She was just too goddamn perky. Having to fake emotions, even in a sci-fi setting, as a real teleworker, lol. Yeah, that was when he was in a shop, and she was just like so nice and so perky that he was like, there's no goddamn way. She's faking it. She's got a chip in her head to fake being happy. There's no goddamn way. He also felt very Dutch. Van Helsing, was from Amsterdam after all. Audron's own consciousness lurked in a tiny, hidden-away area submerged beneath the outer layer of Van Helsing. There he wondered what feeling Dutch meant. It was probably just some programmer's laziness. I'm talking about this Van Helsing jerk. He sees deadly, gruesome creatures everywhere he looks. Bill shrugged. Well, hell, so do I, but I just steer around them. I thought that was a pretty sensible attitude. Yeah, I liked the story a lot. Very likable main character. Fleshed out world and characters. This has to be a full series already. A fun little story where vampires aren't real, but the sci-fi world can make one. The inclusion of vampires feels almost accidental. Lots of events can happen in a story written in an existing universe, but nothing can really change. Deep characters, shallow stories. I really went on fucking... I was running out of Post-it. Yeah. I don't think I've said this in this stream, but I believe I may have said it before in previous ones, so, sorry if I'm repeating myself too often, but... with these short stories, you can usually tell if it's a pre-established world, and this is like a side story that's being published, usually to promote the rest of the series, because the characters are, like, more developed. Not just the main character, but the side characters have really strong personalities. They have stronger bonds. The characters have like stronger, I don't just mean like friendship, but like if the main character hates someone, it's not like shallow, like you can feel the depth within the writing. And the same with like world building, because it's a world they've already built, so this settles perfectly within it. But generally, because it's a side story in these worlds, I may be fucking wrong, I don't know, I haven't googled this, but with because they're written like between books, usually they can't really change the world that much, like physically the world, or like burning down their house or something. And they also can't physically change the characters that much. The status quo between books has to remain the same, or people are going to pick up, like between 1 and 2, they're going to pick up they're going to pick up the next book and be like, wait, why does they have this new personality trait? Why do they have like why are they missing a finger? Why is this like kind of really important change happening? Where did it happen? And why is it canon? They can only do so much, which leads to like fun stories, because it's like a silly little thing where this guy is really funny and grumpy, and he's running around doing funny grumpy things with fun side characters, but nothing really. It's a shallow story. He just stops a girl from killing people, but like for all I know, none of these characters have been in any of the other stories. She's just like, oh yeah, this one girl who worked for me like a year ago. Oh, that's right. Like, you can like kill off a character who was on screen in book 1 by book 4, because no one fucking cares about them by book 4. My point. again, deep characters, shallow stories. So, like, this being included in a vampire story makes sense. There's vampires in it, but it just happens to have vampires in it. It could, like, she puts a chip in her brain, so she becomes Dracula. Then she goes around acting like Dracula. She could have put in a werewolf one. She could put in Donald Duck, but we went with vampire. It makes it, like, it's both really, really good, because the characters and the world building is really interesting, and I want to dig into this world. At the same time, as a vampire story, it's just kind of bleh. Like, I don't want a story where the vampire feels just kind of thrown in because they need a conflict, you know, and could be replaced with anything. I want a real vampire story. Come on. So I give this a B on my little post-it. And I think that's still pretty fair. I feel like in a collection, like if there's an omnibus within the world, it'd be a good story. In a vampire anthology, I want more. Like I felt with, what was it? I forget what it's called. It was in here somewhere. In the Blood. Yeah. I'm gonna put this in B with In the Blood. Married in the Trail of Blood. Married in the Trail of Blood. Oh no, I'm gonna lose my post-it. I do want to start, like, I don't want to have to buy all of these books all of the time. And when I'm not, I don't want to invest. I don't know what I'm saying. Never mind. I'm gonna shut up. Pretend I didn't say anything for the last minute. Food Chain by Nina Kiriki Hoffman. A group of mothers discuss A group of mothers discuss coming into the care of and caring for a vampire. Why's that so hard? The tone is sad. All these women still mourning their dead children, yet the setup is so creepy. What if a vampire brood isn't connected by lust or power but love? Creepy, weird cult behavior, bittersweet. The world failed these women. They became prey. Oh, I really liked the only sounds were the sizzle and pop of bacon on the stove and my breath catching on itself. I really liked that sentence. But the rest of the paragraph is good too. The fragrance of brewing coffee and frying bacon reminded me of countless breakfasts, stretching backward through time, some just the pleasant beginnings to indifferent days, some interrupted by news. Daddy was not coming back from the war. Mother dropped the fry pan when she heard, and grease spatters from the bacon burned her legs. My sister Lucy had delivered a boy. A moment of silence, thanks to God. My own precious little daughter Joanna had not survived the night. But that had been a morning smelling of disinfectant and cigarette smoke in a dingy hospital waiting room because the doctors did not trust me in the room with my own child, so that I missed her last moments, missed holding her hand until God could take it from me. It was all one sentence, but it was really good because she's like crying while thinking these things. So it being like this really long run on with like dashes and parentheses, just keeping it going while she's just crying is really evocative for me. But again, that one sentence, the only sounds were the sizzle and pop of bacon on the stove and my breath catching on itself. Yeah. The rest of it was kind of hard to highlight, honestly. Not really sure why though. Yeah, I really like how Sissy the vampire child, quote unquote, finds these women through despair. What does she say? She specifically says it to them. Tonight, after I feed, she said, I will go out and taste the air, searching for a particular flavor of despair. I will follow it to its source, and I will take that source away from everything she has ever known and bring her here. God, that particular flavor of despair, and the despair they all have in common in her brood, is mourning their dead children. One's like 2 years old, one's an infant. I'm not sure how old Alice, the main character's child, was, but... And, like, they're all been, they call it sissified, her messing with their brains, messing with their memories. What is it? She said. One of them says, I don't want to leave. I'm here of my own free will, but there's so much I don't remember and so many things I don't understand. It's like, it's just creepy. Sissy spoke to her hands. You give me what I need. You give and I take. You give us what we need too, Mickey said after a long moment. Sissy shook her head. Mickey cleared her throat, then said, I would have died. No. Mickey, big, solid, practical Mickey, said, I would have died, Sissy. Sissy closed her eyes and shook her head. No, she said. No, you can't even remember that. I can. I do. I would have died without you, Sissy. You gave me what I needed. I gave you a lie. Bettina gasped. Her arms came up, crossed at the wrists, to cover her breasts, as though she had suddenly realized she was nude. Sometimes we need lies to survive, Dora said. Sissy looked up. Her eyes were dark. I'm a parasite. We all live off of life, one way or another, said Zelda. We kill what we eat right away, and you don't. Just like you took me away from my despair and gave me back a life. It's just like, yeah, kind of what I already said on the post-it. Just like, creepy, weird cult behavior, bittersweet. The world failed these women and became someone's prey, but they still found, like, life and love within it because she, like, makes them see their child as she's feeding on them. So they feel like they're back with this child that they all lost. And the loss drove them kind of insane. Alice even admits she was, like, in a psych ward, like, tied up and not being taken care of by the orderlies because they didn't like her. And, like, I assume all these women are kind of in pretty similar situations because she sensed that particular despair. And she takes them out of this, and she lets them care for their children while she parasites off of them. God, it's like a really good story. Like, what if a vampire's brood isn't connected by lust or power but love? It's lovely. It's creepy. It's weird. I want to kill her, Sissy, because, like, what the fuck? You're taking advantage of these women. And I want to beat up all of the people who failed these women, that they ended up in a vampire's care. You know? Like, I want to protect them. Because that's what they deserve. And they're never going to get it. Because she is indeed a parasite and she's using them. But also she isn't. I don't know. We could talk about it, you know? This is like a story that ends with, that leads to discussion instead of this was good and this was bad. This is like nuanced and deep and interesting. And I just, ooh, the vibes are immaculate. Once again, I loved it. Food chain. Putting that in an S. I really like the stories in this book. Damn, it's been half an hour. An hour and a half. I can't believe I've been talking this long about all of these stories. I got distracted. I didn't even finish putting that down. Oh, there's only 2 left, though, so we will probably read maybe a story. 1 or 2. The first one is really short, so probably just 2. From the new book, I mean. Actually, kind of annoys me. Wow, I'm so happy that I liked so many of these books, but I really did. Like, going through the ranking of the previous one, it's like, wow, you didn't like anything. To be fair, though, there was, like, double the amount of stories in that one and then in this one. I wonder if, like, the percentage for, like, it was similar or not. All right, Song of the Night People by Larry Niven. Niven. Sci-fi world where 2 clans of different species fight off a horde of vampires together. Not sure how much highlighted here. Why would men with crossbows fear vampires? Because nobody had ever seen so many vampires together. It was bizarre, insane. How could so many feed themselves? High Rangers trading group had fought no more than 15, killed no more than 8. Half of wisdom is learning what to unlearn. Another thing I want to stitch on a pillow. Half of wisdom is learning what to unlearn. It's very like sci-fi, action heavy. It's hard to like be like, oh yes, I like this paragraph, because it's not relying on prose to tell a story. It's not like a gothic kind of describe every item in the room and then include the dialogue, you know. It's like there are a horde of vampires attacking us, we need to kill them. They also attack with scent. Their pheromones they give off makes everybody sexual, which leads to them like being eaten alive. Like, I guess like they don't really describe what happens, but the sexual stuff with the vampires leads to death. So they have to literally crossbow them to death to survive the night, the next like 3 nights. It doesn't leave me a lot to highlight, but I can say that I enjoyed this. Let me see. Frustrating that the female vamp's criteria is met incidentally. That's true. The editor's note for this, so the only one that has an editing note is, this is the one entry in this anthology that requires a word of explanation. I originally asked Larry Niven to send me a short story concerning the Ringworld vampires. A few days later, he called to say, well, it's turning into a novel. It is a strictly science-fictional view of what is generally perceived as a fantasy or horror image, the vampire that lures its prey with sex. I had to break it where the action came to the first logical stopping point, but that was difficult to determine. I settled for the point at which the union is achieved among various Ringworld races, yes, to make an expedition to the vampire nest. So yeah, it's met incidentally because there are female vampires out there, I assume. And I don't understand why this couldn't have been a short story with the same plot, a different main character, and a tragic ending. Author was too lazy to change the story a little for this book. File the serial numbers off, man. It is really annoying to read knowing that it's part of a novel. Like, I'm here for a suitable short story with an ending that makes sense for the characters. It's annoying that the editor of the book had to be like, well, I guess we're going to include it, but I'm not sure where to end it. Like, make the author decide where it ends. Or, like, don't do that yourself. Make the fucking author who gave you a manuscript for an entire novel decide where to end his short story. 2, probably don't include it because this jackass couldn't even bother to write you a proper short story. Like, 3, like, yeah, like, just change the name of the fucking main character and, like, have everybody die at the end. Like, just rewrite it, dude. It's not that hard. it's hard to, like, I don't even know where to, I can't even, like, put this on the tier list because it's not even officially a short story. It's a fucking book. This is, like, the most I've sworn all night. Is this stupid Song of the Night people. Short story. We put it in the shrug emoji section. I would like to one day actually read this because it sounds interesting and it's got vampires in it. It's just fucking annoying that it's in this anthology. That's all I have to say to that. Last one is Sister Death by Jane Yolen. 5,000 years ago, a woman cursed out God. God made her into an agent of death. Personally, I picture her more as a phantom with the blood being metaphorical than as a vampire. But that's silly. But she does say that she drinks the blood of people. Blood is mentioned multiple times. So she is a vampire. But, like, in my head, when I was thinking about it, I was like, apparently just kind of viewing her as a phantom floating around, which is what she is. She describes herself as something like that. So how is she physically drinking their blood for real, for real? Is she just drinking their life force? And then I just went into a fucking, well, if she technically is drinking their life force and everybody, and then a ship can be a vampire, and then I guess she is a vampire, so what am I complaining about? I don't know. I should have scratched out that part. Are we all on the same page? God. Not really sure how she went from a hater of men and God to a mother figure. It's out of my depth with the religion. Still a lovely, moving story. Did I highlight anything? It's pretty short. Yeah. The first blood I had was from a young man named Abel, but I did not kill him. His own brother had already done that, striking him down in the middle of a quarrel over sheep and me. The brother preferred the sheep. How like a man. Then the brother called me a whore. His vocabulary was remarkably basic, though it might have been the shock of his own brutality. The name itself did not offend me. It was my profession, after all. He threw me down on my face in the bloody dirt and treated me like one of his beloved ewes. I thought it was the dirt I was eating. It was blood. And then she curses out God, and he makes her into a thing that can never die, Death's sister, chaste till the finish of all time, your mouth filled with the blood of the living. And then she becomes a thing that feeds on children. I wish there was, like, another page. One last story where I'm not sure if this story simply isn't for me or if there's something off here. Maybe it is possibly all of the religions. Some things, I feel like this is another story where it's like, I feel like it's trying to tell me something, but I'm just too dumb to get it. And is that me or is that the story? I don't know. Is it not for me? I'm not sure. Because I really like the prose. I really like the way it's written and the concept. It's beautiful how she drinks blood for 5,000 years and then finds a child and takes it and runs away with it. It's just like, I feel like there's like a step missing. A moment between her becoming the sister of death and her finding a child and becoming a mother. I'm not sure what I would say, except I feel like there's something missing. Sorry, I can't give you more than that. Looking the author in the eyes. I'm not sure the story is complete. I don't know how to help you, though. Figure it out yourself. Not that anybody's asking for my advice anyway. Sister Death. Again, hard to rank. Yoink, this babe is mine now. Basically, yeah. Well, I mean, it's sadder than that because it's, it has to do with, like, concentration camps. I mean, it's a story about vampires. Let me read it because it's really sweet. Only one child, a 7-year-old, stood alone. Her face was angry. She was not resigned. She raised her fist and looked at the heavens and then a little lower at me. Surprised, I looked back. The showers began their rain of poison. Coughing, praying, calling on God to save them, the woman died with their children in their arms. The child alone did not cough, did not pray, did not call on God. She held out her 2 little hands to me. To me. Ima, she said, Mother. I trembled, flew down, and took her in my arms. Then we flew through the walls as if they were air. Yeah. I'm gonna put it... I feel bad, because, like, I really like the prose. And it's lovely, but... I'm gonna put it in B. I'm sorry, I feel bad. Okay. Sister Death. Sister Death. And that is the last story with the little squiggly over there. That is the last story. We can save it. The ultimate ranking of Sisters of the Night has been finished. Yay! Madeline... Survival skills, La Dame, sometimes salvation, and food chain, go an S. Mama is an S-. The Blood Beast and TDTN, don't remember what it's called anymore. A-. A-, empty. In the Blood, Marid, and the... Oh my god, I fucked this up. And Sister of Death, B. Don't know how to just put this. Victims and SOTNP. Do you remember what those titled? No, I don't either. Cool. Very helpful. God. I should be paid to rank things. I'm so good at it. If you disagree, fight me in the comments. If you agree, fight me in the comments. Just leave a comment. Please. Feed the algorithm. I am pretty proud of this. Okay. Well, we have time for, like, the first story in the Vampires book is literally all dialogue, and it's a very fast read, so we would obviously have time for it. So I'm probably going to do the first 2 plus the introduction. Hello. Hi. Why am I saying that? Vampires. A collection of original stories edited by Jane Yolen and Martin H. Greenberg, 1991. Let's read it. Cool. Yeah, comment. Thank you. Thank you, bestie. God. Let's see. Bloodsucker, child of the night, the undead, the soulless, vampire. A legendary creature that has haunted our imaginations for centuries. The vampire has inspired writers, artists, and movie makers in a way that few other subjects have done. People say vampires must sleep all day in their coffins, can be killed only by a wooden stake through the heart, are born with a full set of teeth, can be warded off with garlic. No one knows for sure, but plenty of people have some good guesses. The vampires in this collection lurk in high schools as well as graveyards, in modern American suburbs and Eastern European ghettos, in the 19th century and the 21st. There is even a vampire living in a Scarsdale shopping mall. Here are 13 original stories by such writers as Josepha Sherman, Esther Freisner, Charles D. Lind, and Jane Yolen. Their tales, bone-chilling, touching, and amusing, will expand the boundaries of what we know or guess about vampires and inspire some readers to wear garlic and avoid dark rooms. Ooh, take that off because it's always annoying. Introduction. Bloodsucker, child of the night, the undead, the soulless, These are only some of the names given to that long-feared mythical creature, vampire. The Chaldeans, who lived in the Middle East over 500 years before Christ, devised charms against vampires. The ancient Irish piled stones on their graves to keep them from walking. 5th and 6th century Frenchmen passed laws against them. The Greeks on the Isle of Santorini maimed the bodies of corpses to keep them from rising from their graves. Vampires. They slept all day in their coffins. They had to be near or sleep on earth from their native land. They were unnaturally pale. They had long pointed teeth. The rays of the sun could kill them. They could change into bats or wolves or flies or rats. They could be killed only by a stake through the heart. Vampires. As the stories grew, new features were added. Redheads became suspect. Greek vampires were said to be blue-eyed. Romanian gray-eyed. Irish black-eyed. Chinese vampires were known to be greenish and covered with grave mold. Bulgarian vampires supposedly had only one nostril. Polish vampires were thought to have barbed tongues. Becoming a vampire was an easy matter. In some cases, all it took was being bitten by a vampire. Though the fact that the world is not now overrun by vampires, if this is the case, makes no sense mathematically. Other causes of vampirism included dying in a state of sin, dying after being cursed by one's parents, committing suicide, or dying in childbirth. Also being born between Christmas and Epiphany, being the 7th son or daughter in a family, being born with teeth, being born with a cowl or membrane. These all made you prone to becoming a vampire. And if your mother didn't like salt on her food when she was pregnant with you, that was a very bad sign indeed. That reminds me I need to buy salt from the store. Somebody remind me later. Warding off vampires has proven to be more difficult than becoming one. Garlic was thought to be useful all over the world, worn in a bag around the neck, hung in strands over the door, even rubbed into windows. It was the seasoning of choice. Religious icons, too, seemed to help. In Christian countries, a cross worn at the neck kept vampires away. A well-lit room was thought to repel them, as well as barring doors and windows with iron. In some countries, corpses suspected of vampirism were buried at a crossroads or had their toes and thumbs tied together to prevent them from walking. In fact, there is so much folklore around the world about vampires, it is hard to understand why they are not the dominant species of our planet. The reason is, of course, the stories of vampires are all fantasy, folk tales and legend. Even Bram Stoker's famous Dracula is only a story, but there really is no such thing as a vampire. But isn't it fun to read about them? Here are 13 chilling, thought-provoking, and even humorous stories about vampires written by some of the finest writers of fantasy stories today. From Esther M. Freisner's hilarious blood ghoul who lives in a Scarsdale shopping mall, to Leigh Ann Hussey's provocative Jewish vampire, to Mary Kay Whittington's tragic undead child. However, a word of advice: don't read these stories all at one sitting without some kind of protection. A well-lit room will do, a sharpened stake by your side, and maybe, just in case, a pizza, heavy on the garlic. Jane Yolen. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the best vampire content creator. You're adorable. I love you. Thank you. Anyway, ignoring chat again. Nobody Has to Know by James D. MacDonald and Deborah Doyle. Again, this is all in dialogue. And I'm not good at doing voices. Figure it out yourself. What do you know about vampires? Not much. They drink blood. They turn into bats. They die if they get hit by sunlight. Where did you learn that? It's what I see in the movies. Why? They have it all wrong, you know. Have what? The sunlight. If you believe the movies, sunlight burns vampires or explodes them or makes them melt. That's wrong? Yeah, all daylight really does to a vampire is make him ordinary. He can't change his shape into a bat or a wolf. He isn't any stronger than he was during his other life, and he ages one more day. Sure. So what's the point? Just trying to explain why you never see me at night, that's all. Are you saying that you're a vampire? That's right. Nights, I turn into a bat and go hunting for blood. Days. I go to school and get a little older. I want to look a little more mature. Why are you telling me all this? Because I like you is why. Nights, you guys are lunch. Days, you're safe. See? No fangs during daylight. This is about the weirdest story you've ever told, and you've told some weirdies. There's no such thing as vampires. If you say so. You don't have to believe me, just so you know what's true. You know why I'm doing so well in history? For me, all that stuff was current events. Too freaky. Listen, there's the bell. Let's get to class. You know that thing you were talking about the other day? You mean me being a vampire? That's right. Why did you tell me? I wanted you to know. Why? Gets kind of lonely nights. Listen, I gotta go. See you later. Yeah, later. Are there lots of vampires? No, not lots. But vampires live forever, right? Right, but there aren't a lot. Why not? Why are you asking? Do you believe me now? No, that was just another one of your freaky stories. Then why are you asking me about how many vampires there are? Oh, never mind. We're very careful about whom we make immortal, and the guy who becomes immortal, he has to want it too. Mostly it's older people who want to live forever. Young people think they'll live forever anyway. I don't think that. Neither did I. That's why I wanted to make the change. Now I just want to look a little older. How do you make someone what you are? It's the easiest thing you've ever done. When did you get to be a vampire? Immortal. We say immortal. Why didn't you didn't say that when you told me about it to start with? I wanted to use words you'd understand. You think I'm stupid or something? No, it's not that. I'll tell you about me. Right after the Great War in 1919, I got sick, and I was going to die. The family doctor, we didn't know it, but he was immortal, and he really liked me. You know, he delivered me. He'd been to my parents' wedding. The whole routine. His partner used to make all the house calls, but one night he came himself. Old friend of the family. Said either I could live forever, or I could die before morning. You know, I know what I would have chosen. That's why I'm telling you now. Will people think I died? Yeah, if you want them to. You can get buried, come out at night, go back before dawn, that sort of thing. Or you can keep on going to school. Nobody has to know. Let me think about it. The blood thing. That's been worrying me. Do you really have to drink blood? That's gross. You don't have to kill anyone. You don't need much to keep going. You can go places, do things. You're strong. You can fly. You can make people do what you want to by just looking at them. That's the best part. My parents are getting a divorce. I know. How do you know that? Like I said, I go everywhere. I see everything. I wish I was dead. I know. How about the crosses and garlic? There's a downside to everything. Just stay away from them. You won't miss them. Will it hurt? Only a little, and not for long. Will you do it for me tonight? You'll have to invite me in. I'll be ready. What time? 9. See you at 9. People will be sorry when I'm dead. You'll get to watch and see who cries. I've been thinking about those weird stories you were telling. Listen, forget it. Too late. End of that story. Nobody has to know. James D. McDonald and Deborah Doyle. One more and then we'll go to bed. There's No Such Thing by Charles DeLint. Ken Perry, Apples said. Cassie nodded. Is a vampire. Cassie nodded again. Apples had heard that Ken needled the kids he babysat, but this was the first she'd heard about his claiming to be a vampire. But there's no such thing, she said. Samantha said she saw him turn into a bat one night, right in front of her house when he didn't think she was looking. He was babysitting her, and instead of walking home when her parents got back, he flew. Flew. Cassie nodded solemnly. Apples tapped her hairbrush against her hand, then set it down on her dresser. Their mother had been heavily into mythology when she got out of the university, which was how, though they had a nice normal surname like Smith, the two girls got saddled with their given names of Apolline and Cassandra. Apples had looked them both up at the public library one day, hoping to find something she could use to stop the incessant teasing that they got. But Apolline just meant having something to do with Apollo, the Greek god of music, poetry, archery, prophecy, and healing. That sounded nice on paper, but came out sucky when you tried to explain it to someone. Cassandra had been a prophetess who Apollo was all hot and heavy over, and that would really be fuel for some bad news ribbing if it ever got out. Apples wasn't much good with music or poetry. She was lucky to get a C in either at school. She couldn't read the future, and about the most she could do along the healing line was put on a Band-Aid. But hunting milkweed seed pods in the field behind her house as a kid, she'd learned to shoot a mean arrow. Trouble was, that didn't mean much when you were 16. Not unless you were planning to go in for the Olympics or something, which wasn't exactly an ambition for Apples that Apples had set her sights upon. Cassie couldn't read the future either. She was a sweet 8-year-old with curly blonde hair and a smile that just wouldn't quit. She should have had a great life laid out in front of her, except she had severe asthma, so she couldn't go anywhere without her bronchodilator. Just say inhaler, unless that's a different thing. Then there was her right leg, which had half the size of her left and a good 3 inches shorter. The only way she could walk around was by wearing a leg brace that gained her sympathy or weird stares, but wasn't exactly endearing. Except to Apples, she'd do anything for Cassie. But give up her first date with Rob de Lima, considering that she'd been mooning over him for 3 months before he finally asked her out? You know, there's really no such thing as vampires, she said. Cassie only regarded her with all the gravity that an 8-year-old can muster when they know they're right but can't prove it. Apples sighed. I've seen him in the middle of the day, she said. I thought they couldn't go out in the sunlight. That's just part of their legend, Cassie explained. They've made up all kinds of things about themselves so that people will think they're safe from them. You know, like the bit with the mirror and crosses and garlic. The only thing that's real is that they have to be invited into your house, and Mom and Dad have done that. Apples picked up her hairbrush again. You're really scared, aren't you, she said. Wouldn't you be? Apples smiled. I guess I would. Okay. I'll stay home with you tonight. It won't do any good. Apples thought Cassie was talking about her date with Rob. If Rob's half as nice as I think he is, he'll understand, she said. Maybe he'll even come over and the 3 of us can... Her voice trailed off as Cassie started shaking her head. I already asked Mom, Cassie said, and she said no way. You told her Ken was a vampire? I had to. Apples sighed again. While Cassie hadn't been gifted with the ability to see into the future, she had been born with an overactive imagination. Their parents had long since lost patience with her stories. You should have come to me first, Apple said. You were late coming back from volleyball practice, and I didn't know if you'd be back in time for me to tell you about it. I'm sorry. It's okay. So what can we do about this? Apple asked. Could you maybe come home early? Apple smiled and tousled her sister's hair. You bet. I'll be back as soon as the movie's over. We'll send Ken packing, and then we'll pig out on popcorn and watch some music videos. It'll be past my bedtime. Apples laughed. Like that's ever stopped you. Adorable. Rob was really nice about it. After the show was over, they went back to Apples' house. It's throwing me that her nickname is plural. Apples, not Apple. Ken seemed surprised to see them, but that was about it. No fangs, no big black cape. Apples paid him from the house money her mom kept in a jar in the pantry cupboard and closed the front door behind him. Let me go check on the munchkin, Apples said, as Rob settled down on the couch. Won't take a moment. She hesitated. If she wants to sit up with us for a little while, you won't mind, will you? Rob shook his head. That's one of the things I like about you, Apples. The way you take care of Cassie. Most kids hate their little brothers and sisters. Me, I just wish I had one. Well, you can share mine tonight, Apples said. I'll hold you to that. Be still, my heart, Apples thought as she headed upstairs to Cassie's room. She was thinking about how it would feel to have Rob kiss her when she stepped into the room and her heartbeat jumped into double time. Cassie was huddled on her bed, hunched over and making wheezing sounds. Oh, geez, Apples thought. She's having an attack, and that bloody fool Ken never checked on her. But when she got to Cassie's bed, she found that her sister was crying, not struggling for breath. Apples sat down on the bed the bed springs dipping under her weight. But before she could reach out a hand, Cassie had turned and buried her face against Apple's shoulder. It's okay, Apples murmured, stroking Cassie's short hair. She was going to kill Ken Perry. What happened? She asked. Apples had an awful thought. Did he touch you, Cassie? Cassie nodded and started to sob louder. Apples held her until her crying had subsided. Then she brushed the damp hair away from Cassie's brow and had a good look at her little sister. There were questions she knew she should ask, but somehow she felt the best thing to do right now was to get Cassie over the immediate trauma. The poor kid looked miserable. Her face was all puffed up and her eyes were red. She sniveled, then blew her nose when Apples handed her a tissue. He said, Cassie began. She hesitated, then started over. I woke up and he was sitting on the bed and he'd pulled my nightie up and then you came home. Oh, Cassie. He said if I told anyone, he'd come back in the night and he'd hurt me. No one's going to come and no one's going to hurt you, Apples told her. I promise you. Everything all right? I'm stumbling too much. I'm trying to read too fast. Everything all right in here? Apples looked up to find Rob standing in the doorway. She nodded. Ken just scared her, that's all, she said. She felt inordinately pleased when she saw his hands clench into fists at his sides and anger flare up in his eyes. Sounds like this guy needs a lesson in. Apples cut him off. There's not much we can do, not without getting into trouble ourselves. This is the kind of thing my parents are going to have to handle. But Apples gave a meaningful nod to her sister. It said, not in front of Cassie, please, and was grateful to see that he caught its meaning without her having to actually say the words aloud. He took a breath, then let it out slowly and put a smile on his face. You promised me some popcorn, he said. I hope you're not going back on the deal now. Apples gave him a grateful look. Not a chance. How about you, Cassie? Do you feel like having some with us, or are you going to make us eat it all on our own? You know me. I eat like a bird. Maybe I should put mine in a bird feeder. The smile she got back was small, but it was there. By the time the popcorn was popping in the microwave and a Richard Marx video was booming from the television set, Cassie was almost back to her old self again, all except for the hurt look in the back of her eyes that Apples was afraid might never go away. Rob left before her parents got back. You're going to talk to them about this guy? He asked when they were standing out on the stoop. I'll get it all worked out, Apples said. I promise. But if you need some help, you'll be the first I'll call. The kiss was everything she'd hoped it would be, multiplied maybe 100 times over. She felt a little breathless as she watched him go down the walk, and the tingle he'd called up from deep inside her didn't go away for hours. She was in bed when her parents got home and didn't say anything to them except for a sleepy good night that was half muffled by her pillow. She waited until she was sure they were asleep before she got up again. She couldn't get Ken Perry out of her mind. Not even thinking of Rob helped. Her mind just kept coming back to Ken and what he'd tried to do to Cassie. Mr. Vampire. Right. She had to talk to him, and talk to him now. But first she had to get his attention. With a guy like Ken, there was only one way to do that. She went to her closet and rummaged around in it until she came up with a black leather miniskirt and a scoop neck blouse. She brushed her hair and tied it back, put on a slash of red lipstick, then tiptoed down the stairs and out of the house. She put her high heels on when she was outside and click-clacked her way along the sidewalk. 2 blocks north, 1 block west, another north, till she was standing in front of Ken Perry's house. Stooping awkwardly, the streetlight cast enough light for her to make out the Batman poster in the left front bedroom on the 2nd floor. There was only one kid living here, so it had to be his room. Stooping awkwardly in the short skirt, she picked up some small bits of gravel from the Perry driveway and tossed them up at the window. It took 3 tries before a very sleepy-looking Ken Perry slid up the window and peered down at her. He woke up quickly when he saw who it was. What do you want? He called down in a loud whisper. I thought we could make a trade, she whispered back. I'll give you something you'll like, and you leave my little sister alone. You're kidding. Apples put a hand on her waist and thrust out a hip. Do I look like I'm kidding? He made a soft noise in the back of his throat. I'll be right down. When he opened the door, she was standing on the porch. Aren't you going to invite me in? She purred. My parents are sleeping, I'll bet. Sure. You, can come on in. He stood aside to let her pass by. Apples gave him a considering look as she stepped into his house, just to be sure. One look at him was all it took to confirm it. Ken Perry wasn't a vampire. She should know. Her only regret as she let him lead her downstairs to the rec room was that his dumb stunt had forced her to tell Cassie there's no such thing as vampires, because it was the first time she'd ever lied to her little sister. Ken Perry never came back to school. Rumor in the halls had it that he'd come down with a kind of anemia that the doctors simply couldn't diagnose. It left him too weak for normal teenage pursuits, so weak that he ended up staying in the hospital until his family finally moved away just before midterm exams. Apples didn't miss him. She only needed to feed once a month, and there were always other people around, just like him, who got their kicks out of tormenting some little kid. She didn't give Ken or any of them the gift itself, not the way that the woman had given her the gift in the parking lot behind the Civic Center after a Bryan Adams concert this past summer. She never did find out why the woman chose her. All she knew was that vampires lived forever, and she didn't want any of those guys around her for that long. No, she was saving the gift. Vampires never got sick, and if there was something wrong with them when they got that special bite, then the gift cured them, so she was waiting for Cassie to turn 16. Until then, she had to figure out a way to deal with her parents always remarking on how she just never seemed to get any older, and she had to decide if Rob really was someone she'd want to be with forever, because forever took on a whole different meaning to those with the gift. Oh, geez, I should say the title again. There's No Such Thing by Charles DeLint. And that's the end for me for tonight. I really like that. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of these stories, and I'm happy with the ranking that we did. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate it. I know my streams can be chaotic and weird, and hopefully that's what makes them fun, at least for me, and hopefully for the people watching. I like to do these once a week on Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though I'm struggling to actually start at 6 p.m. Don't hold that against me. I will be here next week reading the rest or more of this book. It's probably going to take a couple weeks to finish it. Yeah, I am still working on, my Sonya Blue book video. I hope to get that out. I really intend to get it out in March, within the next couple weeks. Yeah, look out for that. Again, thank you. And I'm saying good night. Bye.